So I'm picking up after the reboot of putting in the SafeNet demo installation. So when the first phase completes and the machine is rebooted, it places the installer for the second phase wherever you started the installer for the first. So in that case for me, it's my desktop. At this point, what I've accomplished is I've put in Docker. Xming is running, which I can check by looking at this X down in the sys tray, and Hyper-V has been enabled. So I click on the installer for the second phase. If I'm running as a regular user, it'll make me put in the admin password. There's another EULA, or terms and conditions. Pops up a message here that says, okay, I'm going to get Docker started, and that takes a little while. So this phase actually takes a little longer than the first part of the installation process. Even if I have the latest version of Docker, it may immediately tell me that there's a patch to put in, and I'd suggest that you wait and do that later. If you say go ahead and put it in now, when we've tested it, everything works, but Docker's really reliable about reminding you to put in these updates, so it's probably just as well to put them in a bit later and just tell it to remind you to do so down the road. So right now the Moby Docker icon is blinking with its containers going up and down, and this will take another bit of time to complete. And then once this comes in solid, I'll get a message saying it's ready to create a container. That's going to take a little bit of time too, and you'll be able to see it happening once it gets going. So here it's saying, okay, go ahead and start putting in the Docker container. I click OK, and you can see it pulling things down from the repository where this is kept. So this will take a little bit of time, and while that's going on, I just want to show you, if I go into the drive here and go into the program files where the install is happening, there's a folder here that gets created, and this is where you would go to find an uninstaller. And if I were to run that, I just want to tell you again, you'll have to put in a password if you're running as a regular user, the admin password. And what the installer does is it takes out the container. It does not uninstall Docker, and it doesn't disable Hyper-V. We were assuming that those are probably discrete decisions that a sysadmin would want to make. So just to tell you, all it does is it takes out the container, and I'm sorry I hadn't said this yet. It'll take out the Xming side of things as well. So this is moving along another couple of seconds. When this finishes, what it's going to do is it's going to put an icon on the desktop. It's going to put an icon in the start menu that says Firefox Container, same name as what gets put on the desktop, and then it starts the container. So at the end of the installation process, you can start to play with the container without having to hunt for it too hard, but we're trying to make that really easy. And again, the aim of all of this is for people that are looking at it to start to play around with it and get a feel for what it might be like to help us move this process along. Last but not least, so here's the container coming up, and if I were, for example, to try and save this, you can see that it's not talking to the Windows file system, it's talking to the container file system. So this is just evidence that this is running inside of a container as opposed to on, directly on the bare metal inside of Windows 10. And then we're hoping that users just experience this more or less like they would experience Firefox. So the learning curve is not as big as might be normal, or in other types of new software. And just to reiterate, this particular version has video, so I can run these things, but for this particular one, we're not trying to put in the printing or the sound or sort of persistent data that we've got running in the version that's a little bit further along. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm just going to shut down the container now, and please contact us with suggestions and anything that you'd like to discuss, both in terms of the installation process and what you learned from playing around with the container.